we are going to have a good conversation. So come on, let's go. So I've had a very busy day, right? So this video is gonna be very informal, but we're friends, we're family. I've invited you into my sanctuary, one of my favorite rooms where I come to relax, have peace, get away from the kids, get away from the husband, or at least try, because I can hear them yelling for me. But this is where I lock my door. I have my lavender scents smelling good, and everything is just peaceful, right? Sometimes I'm playing my music. But anyway, so we're gonna have a good conversation, but it's gonna be very informal. That's Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. So I had to put that scripture in there because, definitely God planned this out for my life, how I became Dr. Trish. Sit back, put your feet up, and get ready for some good conversation. So, what kind of doctor am I? I can't answer that question without first talking about how I became a doctor. So let's get started with that. Growing up, I was always a good student. As a matter of fact, my brothers are really gonna love me for this. I couldn't wait to show my parents my report card because I was good at school. Writing was my favorite subject, writing, language arts, anything that had to do with words, reading, even from an early age, I always loved that, right? And I was also good at math. I was good at every subject. I grew up during a time though where parents weren't as involved in school as they are now. And also I came from a family where college really wasn't discussed at all. It was a big accomplishment to make it through high school, and that was a big deal. So I wasn't ever pushed to go past high school. I became the first woman in our family to finish a college degree. But let me not get too far ahead of myself, right? Let's talk about that journey. I have a really interesting story. I come from an interesting past, and God has really just elevated me so much, and I'm just eternally thankful and grateful. I'll be revealing more about my past in upcoming videos, but I really want to focus tonight on my education journey. But I will mention this. I was a very young mother with my two oldest children. When I graduated high school, I already had my son. And that's going to be something I'll talk about in a future video. Right after high school, I got pregnant with my daughter. I had no plans. Well, I guess let me rephrase that. I always had plans for myself, but I did not know how to achieve them. And I didn't understand the process or who to connect to or any of that. So I started working right after high school. Actually, I started working before I even graduated high school. But I had my son to take care of, and I was pregnant with my daughter, so I knew I had to work. And even though I worked on these jobs, this is the funny thing, I was always recognized as a leader, even on those jobs. For instance, I remember I worked at a retail store, and shortly after being hired there, probably within a year, I was promoted to a team lead position. This became a trend throughout my whole career, and I'm thankful for that. But one thing I realized was I wasn't going to be able to support my little family working at a retail store. So one day I was, doing my job, and God really motivated me, or just inspired me. He spoke to me. Now, you may not understand what that means. We'll talk about that in another video. Matter of fact, watch my videos where I talk about my relationship with God. I'll put it on the screen for you so that you can click on those videos and get a better understanding about that. But God told me He wanted me to quit my job and go to college. So I made plans to do that. I was really excited about it at first, because I'm like, I didn't want to be a statistic. I didn't want to be what people thought of as a teenage mom, or, I didn't want to be that one. And I always wanted to fulfill my dreams. So, but as the time started drawing near, I started getting anxious about it. Can I really do this? Even though I was always a good student, I was fearful that maybe I would fail at it. But God had plans, right? Remember, on my little journal, I got this today. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. So I put in my notice at my job, and I started this plan. And one thing you'll realize about me, if you keep watching my videos, is I'm a bit of a risk taker, right? So once I get it in my mind that I'm going to do it, there's nothing that's going to stop me. I'm just going to really do it. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it my way. I just really feel driven to accomplish things that I put my mind to. So my son was 3 and my daughter was 1. And I was like 20 years old. And I just thought, oh man, what have I done? I'm not gonna be able to buy diapers, formula, all of that. And but there's something about when God has a plan for you. He has provisions that He will give you also. So He didn't tell me about how everything was going to work, right? Because that's not how he does it. He'll just tell you to do it, and then He wants you to do it by faith. So I quit my job, and even though God told me to go to college, now this is what we do, people, right? This is what we do. We always try to insert our own selves into His plan and try to revise it to how we think it really should work. So I said, you know what, God, you want me to go to school? I have these 2 little kids. I'm not gonna go for 4 years. I need to get something quick, go make me some money, and take care of my family. My mind that I was going to start a technical college, which I did. And I found a program that it was just gonna be 1 year. And I'm like, yes, I can do 1 year. I'm gonna do that, get me a good job, and take care of my kids. God had plans for me. So I went to the technical college. Long story short, I ended up meeting a young lady there who invited me to her church, and I ended up joining that church. I came from a family that we were more involved with trades, I guess, instead of pursuing college education. So I didn't have a blueprint to follow. Although my mother has always been 100, even 1000% supportive of me. I could not have achieved anything that I have without her pushing me and assisting me, encouraging me. I'm so thankful, y'all. If you have a good mother, you got to give props to your mother, right? My mother didn't want me to have to rely on another person for my livelihood, so she always pushed me to pursue something greater, a greater career, greater education, etc. And when I joined the church, God also gave me a great mentor, and I'm going to talk about that in upcoming videos. So I finished my technical college program. It was something like secretarial science, y'all. I told you I wanted to do something quick. It was a full year program though. The whole idea was to teach you how to work within an office organization. But because God had greater plans for me, I wasn't satisfied with that. So, and I tried to fulfill that lack of contentment by, at the technical college, they also had where you can get a 2-year degree. And I said, okay, well, I've already finished the certificate. I'm gonna go ahead and get the 2-year degree. It was a 2-year Associate of Applied Science degree. And I thought that would be enough. I'm like, okay, that'll get God off my back. I'm gonna do that, and at least I'll have a degree under my belt. So I finished that program, and that was my first degree. I got a job working in an office, and once again, within a year of me working there, I got promoted to be a team lead. Again, it was like no matter where I would go, I was put into leadership positions. But God kept drawing me to a higher level. He didn't allow me to be content with that. So I worked those jobs for a while, and then He put the desire in me again to go back and get my bachelor's degree this time. So here's the thing. Now, I was always a good student growing up. However, once I got to high school, things changed, right? I started, ditching school sometimes, getting involved with the wrong people. So if you're watching this and you're a high school student and, if you're going that route, you need to keep watching and listening to my story, right? Because you don't want to alter your destiny. Ultimately, though, God got me on the path that He wanted me to be on. So now I have this desire, but here's the problem. Because I messed up in high school, I couldn't get into a university straight out because I had totally jacked up my GPA from 9th and 10th grade. I don't even really know what I was doing. However, the decisions I made in my first 2 years of high school really affected me. So I remember being so upset because I wanted to go to a university straight out, right? But I couldn't get in because my GPA from those first 2 years of high school, it wasn't high enough for me to get into the university I wanted. So I started at a community college. And I'm saying all this because it doesn't matter where you start sometimes. Sometimes it looks like you're starting at the bottom of the barrel, but God has a plan for you, and He's going to get you to where He wants you to be. So don't be discouraged about that. Just keep following the plan. I remember I was upset. Now, mind you, I won't say I wasn't, but after I was done being upset, I went and enrolled in that community college, and I was determined to finish it. Now, when I was in community college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I journeyed in the community college for a while. What should have been 2 years at the community college actually turned into 4 years because I didn't know if I wanted to be an anthropologist, a philosopher, or whatever. I had no idea what I wanted to be. So I took all kinds of classes in community college, and that's okay. If you're trying to discover who you are and what you're meant to do, it's okay to have a discovery period. Just don't stay in there too long, right? Because those college classes can get expensive. Finally, after 4 years at the community college, I finished there. And I transferred immediately to the university, and by then I had buckled up and I had said, you know what, I'm not spending another 4 years at this university. I'm gonna wrap this up. I had already gotten the base classes at the community college, so as long as I stayed focused, I only had to do 2 years at the university, which I did. So I finished my bachelor's degree. I ended up getting a bachelor's degree in business administration, and I said yes. And you know what? I'm the first woman in my family to get a degree. I'm good. I'm like, I was thankful that my kids allowed me to pursue that at night, because I worked full time during the day, and I went to college classes 3 days per week on campus. My mother had my kids in the evening, so it was stressful on my little family. So it took a lot of sacrifice, not just from me, but also my kids, because they didn't get to spend that time with me when I was at school. Although, now, some days, here's a true story, I took my kids to the college campus. If I wanted to spend time with them and they were missing me, hey, I took my kids right on in there. I remember one day, I had a test at the community college, and you know, I had spent the full day with my kids, and I wasn't ready to, you know, drop them off and not have them with me. So I decided I was going to take them to class with me. Now, mind you, my children were very well behaved. Even though I was a young single mother, my children, hey, they were like, I don't know, to some extent we were growing up together because I was so young, but I was definitely their mama. If you ask them now, I'll have them on future videos, but I was really strict with them too. But they were my buddies, you know. And so one day I took them to class with me, and when you should have seen the teacher's face when I walked in with my 2 children, and he really, I don't know, he was probably scared to kick them out, or I don't know, he hesitated to do that, but it was definitely all over his face that he could not believe I brought my kids in with me. But that's because I could trust my kids. I knew they weren't going to act up. They were very well behaved. They sat down at a desk, gave them a pencil and some paper, and they were quiet as mice the whole over an hour that I took the test. As a matter of fact, after the test was over, my teacher came to me and he was like, you know what, when I saw you come through the door with your kids, I was so worried that your kids would be a distraction. But he said, I just want to let you know that your kids are the most well-behaved children he had ever seen. And that's the truth about them. They were some good kids. I was blessed with that. So after I finished my business administration degree, I went back to building my career because I worked the whole time anyway. And I finished the degree and got promoted again. And this promotion took me to another state. I started making way more money than I was making. And I was like, okay, you know, I'm making good money. I'm doing well. You know, I can really support my family. And I do not need to go back to school. So I was really done. You know, I was happy. I was like, okay, I'm the first woman in my family to get a college degree. And I am doing well in my career. And I don't need any more school. Well, as you can imagine, that was not the plan of God for me. So I thought I was done, but he said no. So shortly after starting my new career, God told me to go and get my master's degree. And I was like, really, God? I can't just be happy with my bachelor's? What's really going on? But he wouldn't leave me alone. So I had to go back and I ended up getting my MBA. By this point, before I even completed my master's degree, I already had 4 degrees or certificates. So funny story though, right? So back when, before I even started that journey, I remember clear as day, I was sitting in my mother's living room. My oldest daughter at the time was just a baby, and I was just thinking about my future, and God gave me a poem to write about myself, and I wish I had that poem to this day. I had it for the longest in a journal, and I'm going to have to find it. I hope I can. But in the poem, I wrote about all the degrees I would receive, and it was like God was telling me that even though it looked like you weren't going to make it far in life, I got you, because you're going to show some people something. Because imagine this, being a single teenage mom with 2 kids, people didn't really expect much, right? But God will take those who have been written off, and he will show the world that he is able to do anything. So by the time I completed my master's degree, I had already met and married my husband, and I was pregnant with our first daughter together. You saw her in the previous video, Peyton. So at this point, hey, I'm a newly married woman. I have a newborn, well, a soon-to-be newborn. She was still in my belly at the time. I had 2 teenage kids. I was like, okay, this time I'm really done. I'm not going back to school. Lord, I'm done, okay? I have my master's degree. I'm happy with my career. I'm happy with my family. I don't need anything else. But God's plan, remember, it wasn't my plan, it was his plan, and he knows what he's doing. So I wasn't listening to God, because he was trying to remind me of back when he told me I would achieve all those degrees, and I had told the Lord, look, I had achieved 5 degrees and certificates by that point, and I was like, okay, Lord, we can be done now. But God wasn't done. So I didn't want to listen. I was really just trying to ignore him on that. So he sends me my mentor, and she tells me, the Lord says he wants you to go get your doctorate. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You want me to get my doctorate? I mean, haven't I been in school long enough? But he wouldn't leave it alone. The same word just came back to me over and over and over, until finally, after I had Peyton in 2012, I finally decided, you know what? I'm going to start my doctorate program. My previous degrees were in business, and at that point, my entire career was business or finance related. At that point, it was, I think, about 15 years or more in that field. But I didn't feel compelled to get another business degree. So I was like, Lord, what do you want me to do? Because, I don't think it's necessary. Now, they do have doctorates in business, right? But I just didn't feel like, I had worked my entire life in a business field. So I'm like, what would I do with that? I had always had an interest in psychology. So I'm like, Lord, now you want me to switch from a business field to psychology? But it wouldn't leave me alone, right? Because I always wanted to know how the mind works. I was always interested in how people think. why they do the things that they do. I'm very analytical at times in that way, so I always wanted to figure out things like that. It was always an interest for me. So I decided to pursue psychology. Now, one thing that I did decide to do though is I wanted to combine psychology also with my previous business degrees. So I'm gonna tell you what I got in just a minute. Now I know y'all been waiting, but I want to mention this first because I started my PhD program in 2012, and then so many tribulations hit me, right? There were family issues. We experienced health problems. We had babies. Of course, there were at different times financial issues, and I just felt like, Lord, you told me to do this, but I keep running into all of these obstacles. What's really going on? But I couldn't quit because I'm the type of person that if I'm going to do it, like I mentioned, I'm going all out. I'm going all in for it. And I don't like to quit at all. I'm like, once I start it, I gotta finish it. So quitting wasn't an option for me. I did have to take a few breaks for sometimes for an extended period of time, 6 months or so. So I probably could have finished earlier. But one thing that I would not do is quit. So I ended up graduating with a PhD in general psychology with an emphasis in IO psychology. That's industrial and organizational psychology. I'm not going to go into it that much in this video about what an IO psychologist is. I will have upcoming videos about that. So yeah, after an 8-year long journey, okay, let me tell you this. They do not make it easy to get a PhD. When I say I shed blood, sweat, and tears to get this degree, I am not exaggerating. Maybe a little bit, but you get the gist, right? You get the point. They don't make it easy for you. But through the grace of God, I was able to complete it, and I'm so glad that I persevered. I ended up graduating in May 2020 in the midst of a pandemic, of all things, right? The day I defended my dissertation, it was one of the best days of my life. I've had some really good days, but it was really one of the happiest moments of my life. I remember just doing a happy, joyful dance. So I hope this conversation has inspired you to keep pursuing your dreams and what God has called you to do. It doesn't matter what background you came from. I'm telling you that you're able to accomplish great things. Hey, I'm going to be sharing lots more with you about my background, about what I do, about career advice, life advice, etc. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do so because you want to follow me on this journey. I'm excited about where we're going. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you stay tuned for Thursday's video. It's going to be a lot of fun. So thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on Thursday.